We turn now to Cynthia Mulligan, who spoke with the Premier today about those rising numbers and what it could mean not just for businesses, but for families across Ontario. Cynthia.
Well, Janella, as you mentioned, that rolling 5-day average has nudged up again, slowly creeping up from a low of 326 on Saturday. The numbers are being watched very carefully, of course, as the province weighs whether to expand those family bubbles and move into phase 2 of opening up the economy. Today, the state of emergency is, Ford acknowledged the state of emergency. He wants to extend it until June 30th, but the Premier says that doesn't mean that will slow down reopening the economy.
Let me be clear. This does not mean that reopening is on hold. We are working around the clock to move ahead with our economic reopening.
Now, the anti-racism protests in the U.S. against the police killing of George Floyd are top of mind here for many as well. And for the second day in a row, Premier Doug Ford said he would not tolerate any form of racism in this province. I asked him to weigh in on how Donald Trump is handling this situation.
I'm worried about Ontario. That's what I'm concerned about. They have their issues. There's no doubt they have their issues in the U.S. and they have to fix their issues. But thank God that we're different than the United States, and we don't have the systemic deep roots they have had for years. When I went down to the U.S., spent 20 years back and forth building the company down there. I said the difference between the U.S. and Canada, for the most part, we get along. We all live beside each other. We work together. We share communities.
So the conversation about this shouldn't just end there. I spoke to Maclean's magazine contributing editor Andre Domise about the Premier's comments on racism here versus the U.S. Domise sees a very different reality.
Do we have anti-Black police violence? Yes, we do. Do we have disparities in our health, education, and family wealth outcomes? Yes, we do. Do we have problems with people feeling like they can't go shop at a mall? Do we have problems with people feeling like they can't walk down the street or sit in their cars and read? Do we have problems with that for Black folk in Canada? Yes, we absolutely do. So what is he talking about? When Premier Ford says something like we don't have the same kinds of systemic racism, well, we spent literally years lobbying the Ontario government. That is, when I say we, I mean Black communities in Ontario. Spent years lobbying the Ontario government for an anti-racism directorate. And then the Ford government, one of their first acts was to do a couple of things. One, pretty much to eradicate police reform. And two, defund the anti-racism directorate down to like practically nothing, peanuts. Do we answer questions like, what are the COVID contraction and death rates looking like? We have to fight for that information to be collected, if not released. Why? Because they don't want to know the answers to those questions.
Andre Domise mentioned cuts to the anti-racism directorate in that statement. Ford spokesperson said to me that they actually didn't make cuts to it, but $200,000 wasn't spent the year before, so that money was carried over to the 2021 budget. It is fair to say the government has resisted compiling race-based data during COVID-19, despite concerns the pandemic is disproportionately affecting minority and low-income communities.